Hey everyone, I want to quickly walk through a proposal to update this 600 to 950 values in the chromatic color ramps to make adjustments for dark mode. If you do any research on saturated colors in dark mode, you'll find that the overwhelming recommendation is to use less saturation. There's a number of reasons, but primarily it creates like an optical vibration with these dark colors on a dark surface that can cause eye strain. It can reduce contrast, and aesthetically, it can also just feel more muddy and less refined. These are all things that we want to avoid, and we've been aware of this from the start. However, we kept color changes to the color ramps out of scope initially as part of dark mode. But I think as we approach beta, we have opportunity to make some refinements that will be more meaningful, particularly as these colors are used in feedback and status design tokens. I think that the adjustments that are made to those where there's larger areas of flooded color will have an overwhelmingly positive impact. So to that end, I created a color ramp adjustment tool with the help of Claude using the LCH color mode, which is focused more on perceptual uniformity. So I only want to change one aspect of these hues, and that is really the saturation. I don't want to make adjustments to lightness or anything else, and so or hue. So that's all I want to do is just change the saturation. So this tool here can switch between light and dark mode, and it has saturation controls for the 600 to 950 values, and 100% is what it is today. If I start to take away from that, I'm reducing the saturation. The reason I focused on the 600 to 950 is because that's the darker end of the color ramps where we really start to notice the impact of these colors in larger areas on a dark UI. So I've gone through and done some testing, ended up with more of a linear base 8 change to these. I'd invite you to do some more exploration on your own to see if you come to the same conclusions I have. But these are the numbers that I've plugged in that I feel offer sufficient reduction in the saturation without losing any of the meaning or the qualities. So orange associated with warning, red with danger, etc. We don't want to lose that, but we also want to clean up the appearance in the UI and provide some refinement. So to that end, I've got an MR open locally, branch open locally, and I've got one comparing here to what's in production. And I want to walk through just the impact of some of these changes. So let's do that quickly. All right, here I have the default banner, uses the purple background in production. If I flip over to the update, you can see that indeed it is a little less saturated. It might be harder to pick up on the video. I apologize. So definitely give it a test for yourself. And I like to always do a little squint test. And I do notice that the content, the call to action, the text does stand out more with the reduction in saturation, which I think is a benefit. Again, here's the introduction, which uses the blue. Over to the introduction blue here, swap back and forth. I think that's a helpful change. Where we really start to notice it more is when we look at feedback and status. These are the changes here, but I'll again toggle. So if I'm looking at status, it's very vibrant on the current state, and with that, these colors just don't mix well with the background. They do create some of that optical vibrance. I would say less so for status than feedback, which uses a darker value here. But I still think that the reduction in saturation is beneficial. So here's a little toggle back and forth. Again, the meaning isn't changing, but it feels a little more integrated into that surface. So let's look at feedback. All right, so here is before, here's after. Particularly info, danger, all of them. Who am I kidding? They all look a little more integrated, and as a benefit, it does increase contrast. If I run a little test here, The current contrast, if I switch over to this one, is 757. Still AAA, still excellent contrast. But if I switch over to this new one, it increases 762. So it's a slight bump in contrast, which I think is always a win. That's consistent across the board, and I think that that's valuable. So I want to keep this video short, but that's the premise of this, just slightly reducing the contrast in the 600 to 950 colors in the color ramp of the chromatics, and doing this to refine the UI, to make it a little more acceptable to apply feedback and status in a larger variety of ways, where we want that larger flood of color, but we don't want it to be so garish or to create some of that optical dissonance that it's doing today. So do some exploration on your own, and looking forward to your feedback and working through this proposal.